Great. Hi, my name is Patrick. I'm a co-founder and the former CEO of Rotten Tomatoes. And today I'm going to talk about focus. My story began last summer at Blue Startups. I was an entrepreneur in residence there, and there I worked daily with 7 different startups over the course of 3 months. And there, the advice I gave to them over and over was that they were all trying to do too much, that they needed to focus. Over the course of hammering that point in, I realized that I had not followed my own advice, that I had not been focused with my last few startups. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started 6 companies, of which Rotten Tomatoes was a third. The companies where I was focused worked. The companies where I was not focused failed. And that's when I realized that being focused is the most important trait for a startup to have. Ironically, almost everyone gets this wrong, and it's why so few startups make it. But why do so many entrepreneurs make this mistake? Entrepreneurs believe they can do anything, so they want to do everything. It's actually harder and against their nature to focus. Too many features, too many categories, too many markets. They want to be everything for everyone. You can spot the worst offenders a mile away by looking at their deck. In it, they have a competitive landscape slide, and like so. And on one axis, they have their companies listed as well as their competitors. And on the other axis, they have a list of features. Each of their competitors has a few features checked off, but for their company, they have a line of checks all the way down. I'm sure a bunch of you have this slide, exact same slide in your deck right now. These entrepreneurs are trying to build everything but the kitchen sink and trying to service everybody. This is the most common problem that entrepreneurs face by far. They are not focused. So what is focus? Focus is answering one question as quickly and cheaply as possible. Do people want this? The goal is to get to product market fit, which I define to be when a product is so good that people tell other people about it without being asked to. In other words, the product sells itself. I like to think of finding product market fit as starting a fire. Being everything for everybody is like sunlight hitting the earth. It provides light and heat, but isn't enough to start a fire. But what happens when you add a magnifying glass? By focusing the sun's rays on a single tiny point, it is possible to start a fire. Now, imagine your resources as the sunlight. By focusing your resources on a tiny point, it is possible to find product market fit. And one important thing to remember about fire, it spreads. If everything falls into place just right, you could have a forest fire on your hands. That's Facebook, Amazon, Google. Their fires are so big, you couldn't put them out even if you wanted to. So how do you focus your resources? You reduce scope, cut away until it's one feature, one category, one market. This is the opposite of building everything but the kitchen sink. For feature, pick the feature that is the main reason why anyone would use your product. For Rotten Tomatoes, that was a tomato meter. You get rid of everything else on the site, and it still 95% works. For Twitter, that's the tweet. Category. Choose the category that makes the most sense for your business. For Rotten Tomatoes, that was movies. Market. Go for the lowest hanging fruit. The smaller and more niche the market, the better. For Rotten Tomatoes, we initially started with hardcore movie buffs. At the start, entrepreneurs generally have extremely limited resources. So reducing the scope of the problem increases the chance of success. Not only does it allow you to do things faster and cheaper, you end up with a better product too. One way to tell if you cut enough is to see if you can explain your product in 15 seconds. A product that you can explain to someone else will spread. A product that you can't explain won't. The best products and best companies do primarily one thing at the start. Think Rotten Tomatoes, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. You can't be more of a single thing than Twitter. It's literally a status update. Amazon started with just books. They went public just selling books. It wasn't until the second year of being public that they launched into a second category. eBay started with Beanie Babies. Google was just simple search. When Google started, Yahoo was huge, but Yahoo was a portal. In other words, they were everything but the kitchen sink. Yahoo had unlimited resources. Google was a pair of PhD students right out of Stanford. Yet Yahoo was beaten by Google at the one thing that Yahoo should have been good at, search. But even Google Video, with all the resources of Google behind it, couldn't beat YouTube. And instead, Google was forced to buy YouTube. Same with Facebook buying Instagram, or Amazon buying Zappos. In every case, the larger company with infinitely more resources could not compete with the smaller, focused startup. Let's go back to that competitive landscape slide I talked about earlier. Instead of having a line of checks all the way down for features, you should have one check for a single feature and do that one thing better than anyone else. That was Google for search, YouTube for video, Instagram for photos, Zappos for shoes, Rotten Tomatoes for movie reviews. Regardless of how focused you are, you can't start a fire until you launch. Do what you can with the resources that you have to get something out there. Don't worry about resources you don't have, otherwise you'll get stuck. To launch quickly, you should release a minimum viable product. This is the equivalent of drawing blueprints before building a house. It's a lot easier to decide to move a room around when you're working with blueprints than when you've already built the house. By launching, you can see if you are able to start a fire. In other words, trying to find product market fit for a tiny market. But what happens if it doesn't light? You pivot, change the feature, or the category, or the market, or even try something completely different. Does focus always work? No. Being focused does not guarantee success, but being unfocused guarantees failure. Look at WeWork. What was the first thing they did after they fired their CEO? They cut all their non-core businesses. In other words, they focused. I'll end with a quote from Steve Jobs. People think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there are. You have to pick carefully. Don't say yes to 100 things and end up being unfocused. Take that magnifying glass and focus all your resources to a single tiny point. One feature, one category, one market. Now get out there and start some fires. Thank you.